Hello and welcome to another Tuesday tutorial. I'm your host, Lisa Mitrokin, and today is all about steampunk. What is steampunk, what is the steampunk style, and what makes the style so unique, and also what color palette is best to use. The reason for today's topic is of course the mid-November steampunk freakout. If you missed it, or parts of it, I'll give you a quick overview. The Freakout is an epic collaboration of YouTubers, artists, and colorists that brings together thousands of people for steampunk coloring. This is Sammy's brainchild from the Color and Chat with Sammy channel. She organized 6 YouTubers to color and stream pretty much back to back for 2 days in a row. 14 artists, including myself, each donated a unique steampunk page. Lots of pages were available for a highly discounted price, and some were even given away for free. It was a proper freakout. But it's not over yet. Now that thousands of people have collected their special pages, everyone will spend the next month or so actually coloring them and sharing their work. For my part, I drew this very detailed character, and I had 3 of my top colorists color it, each in her own way, just in time for me to release this image to the world. Kat Datillo, of course, did her digital magic in the stunning mystical glow scene. Lori Gregory presented one of her best colored pencils works ever. And Sam Twigger made it look like a painting by completely changing the background and making the outlines almost untraceable. And while the crazy discounts are over, all the pages are still available for sale at their regular prices on Etsy. Check out this video's description for all the details. My page is also the monthly freebie for November on Patreon. So if you are a patron, go grab the PDF. If you're not a patron, come join us. This is just one of many awesome treats there. So if you're coloring my picture or any of the other 13 incredible works of art from this weekend and want to learn a bit more about this fun style, this tutorial is for you. If you're from the future and you're coloring something completely unrelated but still steampunk, this tutorial is for you also. For this lesson, I chose a page from a very special book. This is the first adult coloring book that I ever published. It's called The Four Realms, and it's based on a deck of cards. There are 4 chapters, each corresponding to the suit of cards. And one suit is entirely steampunk themed. Actually, there's a very fun loop in this story. Some of the designs you see in these pages are now tattoos on my new steampunk illustration. I couldn't decide which page to color, so I asked my patrons, and they voted on the king. So, the king it is. He's certainly a fun page and is actually the most complicated page in the chapter. You have my patrons to thank for that. Since this is my only copy of the book, and it's kind of special because it's my first, I didn't want to actually color in it. So I printed my original PDF design on this beautiful tan-toned paper. One of the perks of coloring your own line art is that you have all the digital files for everything. Since this is a playing card, it's reversible. And to keep things interesting for you, the colorist, each reversed face is the dark side of the character. In this case, it's the mechanical version of the king. Today we'll work on his traditional face though. Because I'm working on toned paper, I start with my white charcoal, and I establish the areas of the face that will be the lightest. This is more for me to clearly see the parts that will be the lightest than for any other technical purpose. These white areas will be completely covered with other colors by the time I'm done with this. For my skin tones, I want to go dark. I want really high contrast with very deep, nearly black shadows, and golden yellow light on the parts that I just marked with white. I start with CHESTNUT, and I apply it to the areas that I anticipate will be the darkest. Then I proceed to blend the CHESTNUT shadows with the white charcoal using a light peach color. As usual, I've pre-selected all of my colors. Actually, I probably prepared too many. I may not use all of them, but I really wanted to have a nice variety of yellow, orange, and brown tones on this one. So, why this color palette? What exactly is the steampunk style? And what exactly is steampunk anyway? Steampunk is a subgenre of science fiction and science fantasy. The criteria for steampunk is a mix of real and plausible futuristic technology in the Victorian era. Probably the single most recognizable symbol of the steampunk style is gears, cogs, and all sorts of clockwork mechanisms. Imagine the Victorian era where everyone was a mad scientist with an incredible fashion sense. That's steampunk. Unlike many other genres of fiction, steampunk comes with its own color palette. It's very heavy on brown leather and copper gadgets. You will see a lot of browns, a lot of orange, golden copper, yellow, some white, some black, a splash of turquoise, of course, for the mad scientist part, and maybe absinthe green for extra credit. So to bring out that very specific fantasy feel, I'm coloring the face in a slightly exaggerated way. My shadows are heavier than usual. The yellow glow on the face is also stronger than usual. I used actual black around the face, which is very rare for me. And I made the eyes look like they're glowing orange. And I also went pretty heavy on the eyeliner. For the hair and the beard, I used Espresso and Dahlia Purple. And then I added little swirls and curls with a 10% warm gray. I really like this trick, using a lighter color on top of a darker one to show off patterns and subtle details. I don't know if it works with every brand of pencil. I'm certainly curious to hear about your experiences with different tools. I myself use Prismacolors, and the trick works beautifully. The design of the beard has a lot of little details already drawn, but I straight up ignored them and colored over the swirly lines with my dark pencils, only to add some different swirls here and there afterwards. And that's just a personal preference. Some of you will enjoy filling in every single lock of hair one by one, and that's absolutely fine. But my oil painting background still has me in the habit of establishing a base color first and then adding the light elements on top. Either way works. You guys know that I always encourage you to experiment. Try my way, try other colorists' ways, and see what works best for you. There's no wrong way to color. I really like the shape of his mustache, and I don't want it to get lost in the darkness of the beard. So I decided to keep only the tips of the mustache very light and add some black shadows all around it. This way it's very visible but still looks like it's the same color as the rest of the hair. And now onto the part that will actually make this obviously a steampunk page, the goggles. To give them a leather feel, I use burnt ochre all over, applying it heavy in and around the seams and the edges. I blended with eggshell and emphasized the darkest shadows with black grape. The goggles may seem intimidating at first. They were even intimidating to me and I drew them. But try to perceive them as two cylinders that just happen to have lots of layers and lines and extra decoration. Looking at them that way, it's a bit less daunting. The glass in the goggles is the most fun part for me. This is my chance to introduce that splash of turquoise. I want this glass to be obviously domed and look like it's very thick. But I also want to take this opportunity to make my coloring obviously a fantasy piece and not photorealistic. There's something about turquoise and neon green that just screams science fiction. Take any scene, add some green smoke or a green glow, and it's suddenly science fiction. That's just the way our minds work. For my bottle glass turquoise effect, I'm using AQUAMARINE, which is very confusing. I love Prismacolors, but their pencil naming department can use some improvement. See, in my mind, aquamarine is a pale blue, like aquamarine the gemstone. This to me is very obviously a bright turquoise color. So whatever brand you're using, and if you're trying to match this color, don't look specifically for aquamarine. Look for something that's turquoise or a bright blue that's kind of on the green side. I create the gradient from turquoise to nearly white with sap green and a 10% cool gray. And I add just a touch of china blue to the edges on the bright turquoise side. Now, for the rest of the background, I use the same brown as I did on the goggles, burnt ochre, and I apply it generously all over. I specifically color around the main objects and not inside, leaving the mechanisms lighter but displayed against a darker background. This gives my coloring an old book illustration kind of feel. Notice also that I'm not filling the background evenly, but rather adding some general shapeless shadows and gradients around the objects. That too creates a very Victorian etching feel, like it's on old parchment. I proceed to blend my background designs with yellow ochre, and that's it. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the background. It's just there to set the mood and to give a feeling of the setting and the lighting. Another thing that's very typical to the steampunk style is the use of high contrast, like candlelight in a dark room or those turquoise mechanical lights in a science laboratory. I'm not playing with lights and glow effects here, but I will bring out that contrast by playing with my card symbols, the club symbol and the letter K. The club symbol is already conveniently placed over a pretty dark area, so it's easy for me to keep it light. I will make it a pale yellow. The way that I made the symbol look almost like it's glowing is I used 2 shades of pale yellow on the design, and then I put little dabs of white gel pen ink in the 4 starburst shapes. While the white ink was still wet, I used a Q-tip to smudge it into soft, subtle glow effects. Now it clearly stands out from the rest of the design. And for the letter K, I decided to go with turquoise again, to accent the goggle glass. Since this is a 2-part coloring page and very detailed, I will color the 2 parts as separate characters. Next week, I will flip this page upside down and work on the mechanical king. My objective will be to use a matching color palette, but clearly showing that these are 2 sides to the same character. Let's see what I come up with. I don't actually know myself yet. If you want to try your hand at this page as well, you can find it in my book, The Four Realms. The link for that is in the video description below. I'm also offering it as a free page to my patrons. So if you're already a patron, go grab it. If you're not, come join us. My patrons get a lot of gifts throughout the month, on top of their regular benefits. Also, we're having a steampunk event in my Facebook group, Tom. It's called the Steampunk Queen, and in it I offer the Queen from that same book and the same chapter as a free download. So come check that out. Join my group here and find the event. It will be a pinned announcement. Everything you need to know is in the event description. So that concludes today's show. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of this coloring page. If you did, please give this video the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you don't already. I'll see you guys next week and we'll finish up this page. Thank you so much for watching, and a super special thank you to Sammy, Laura Rafferty, Belinda Color with Faithful Girl, Honor Your Crafts, Passionista Colorista, and Coloring with Vicky for featuring my work in your streams. And also a very special thanks to JoBeth Sexton for dedicating an entire show to coloring my steampunk page. I love you guys. It was just an amazing weekend. Thank you so much. I'll see you in a week. Bye!